I bet a friend a crate of juice that I could get close to my mother-in-law in a dark corner. My mother-in-law is a serious woman not to be taken lightly. Corey said it was a no-win situation, so I might as well give up the juice box right away. I only grinned at that. We'll see who we have to pay back. I got right down to business, determined to prove him wrong. I didn't know how to approach it, so I decided to do it the old-fashioned way. I offered to help around the house. I decided it was worth a shot. My mother-in-law fiddled around a bit and started figuring out what I should do. It seemed like most of the housework was already done, but eventually she found a few small things for me to do. It was obvious that she was slightly amused by my sudden enthusiasm. She had no idea what I was up to, and I tried not to show it. Oh, I forgot to mention I have a father-in-law, and he's a hard-working man. However, we don't get along too well. He thinks his daughter could do better, that she could marry someone with a better job or more ambitious. It's an unspoken tension that hangs in the air when we are in the same room. Anyway, my mother-in-law was pondering what task to assign to me, and I was tired of pretending not to notice. I was sure she was looking in my direction too, even though she feigned ignorance. A hint of curiosity flashed in her eyes, but she said nothing. It was a Saturday, and on Saturdays the bathhouse is heated. I decided to use that to my advantage. The bathhouse had always been a good place to be, and I figured it might work in my favor. I told my mother-in-law that I wanted to join the steam room. I was willing to do anything to win the bet. It was a matter of principle. She agreed, and I went into the bathhouse, stripping off my clothes but leaving my swimming trunks on. I didn't want to frighten her by being too explicit. She hardly looked in my direction, just set down the bucket and broom and started to leave the bathhouse. "Don't be in a hurry to leave," I said. "I want to ask you something." About what she answered warily. I realized that she was trying to figure out what I was up to. "Lisa, don't be in a hurry to leave," I repeated, trying to keep my tone casual. She shifted slightly, clearly hesitant. I could see the hesitation in her eyes and tried to appear as nonchalant as possible. After a moment she agreed, but added, "Don't look at me." "Lie on your stomach," I assured her I wouldn't look, and obediently lay down. She went out into the hallway and wrapped the sheet around me, then returned. I kept my head down, not wanting to spook her. She was obviously nervous. I lay face down, resting my head on my hands. The air was thick with steam, and I could feel my pulse racing. She began to whip me with the broom, and I realized that she was skilled at it. Leaves flew in every direction, and I remained motionless, not daring to look up. The rhythmic sound of the broom hitting my back echoed through the small room. After about 5 minutes, I managed to turn slightly, and that's when everything changed. She pulled me closer, and despite the intense heat, she was surprisingly good at it, not just with the broom, but with the way she held herself. There was something confident in her movements, something that hinted at a side of her I hadn't noticed before. Maybe she was tired of her husband after all these years. And who knows, maybe they're still doing something similar. Usually men get lazy, preferring TV to intimacy. I felt she was missing touch, intimacy with someone. But I won the argument. Turns out appearances can be deceiving. At the end she whispered, pulling the sheet over me, "Don't tell anyone." I felt a little insulted. "I'm not stupid," I replied. There was a softness in her eyes that hadn't been there before, a vulnerability that made me feel strangely protective. In the evening I called Corey and he asked how it went. I laughed. Corey knows my mother-in-law, so he was skeptical. He had tried to approach her once before and failed miserably. Not only did she not put him at ease, she put him in his place. She'd always been tough, almost unapproachable, and Corey had learned that from experience. But it was different with me. There was something between us, something unspoken but undeniable. Of all the women I've dated, my mother-in-law is in the top 5. She was shy at first, but once she got involved, she realized what she was doing. There was an intensity about her that surprised me, a passion that had probably been buried for years. In the end, I think she enjoyed it as much as I did. She's not the kind of person who likes random things not in cars or on couches. She needs something special, something meaningful. But something about that bathhouse had awakened a spark in her that had probably been slumbering for a long time. I told Corey all this, and he couldn't believe it. He knows I don't lie to my friends, so eventually he got over it. He was a little bitter, but I told him, "You're just not her type, dude, that's how it ended." Corey kept prying details out of me, trying to figure out how I was different, why she responded to me and not him. I just shrugged and said that maybe it was chemistry, or maybe it was just timing. Sometimes things happen when you least expect it. The next day I saw my mother-in-law again. She was acting like nothing had happened, but there was a new warmth in her smile and a softness in her eyes that wasn't there before. This was our secret, and there was something exciting about it. I noticed that next to me she became more relaxed, more at ease. It was as if we had crossed an invisible line, and now there was no turning back. That's when I realized I'd underestimated her. She wasn't just the serious, feisty woman I'd always thought she was. There was something more to her, something I hadn't bothered to explore before. And now that I had, I found myself wanting more. Not just for the thrill of it, not just to win a bet, but because I genuinely liked her. She was strong, confident, and surprisingly gentle when she let her guard down. Corey eventually dropped the subject, but I knew he was still curious. I didn't mind. What had happened between me and my mother-in-law was something I would always remember, and it had changed the way I felt about her and myself. And as I looked across the dinner table at her that evening, I couldn't help but smile. She caught my gaze and smiled back, just for a moment, and I realized we were both thinking the same thing: appearances can be deceiving, and sometimes the most unexpected people can surprise you.